Already not good for dogs.
Yeah.
This season.
That theater's awesome. It's a nice room.
Yeah, I really love that theater. I mean, going from the university, doing stuff on there, then to working with you guys.
Yeah.
It's just...
It's a nice theater.
Yeah.
It's a pretty theater.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a nice space.
You're comfortable.
It feels like home.
Yeah.
As somebody going from like different theaters and stuff, like even the ones that like when I go to New York and see shows, for whatever reason, that theater always sticks out as a place that I would want to perform.
Really?
Versus others. I mean, maybe it's partially because it's familiar, but also at the same time, seeing you guys over the years transform that space into many different aspects, it was just like, this could be anything.
Again.
So,
yeah.
It's always cool
That's
to
a good
see that.
starting
Okay, so we're going to start our interview.
Okay.
Hello, this is Nikolai from Interviews with Everyday People. I'm sitting down with Tony and our friend Andrew Hubatsek, and we're going to have a good time with this interview. So we're going to start off in the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Tony. I kind of grew up all over the eastern states, eastern seaboard, northeast.
Okay.
I was born in Rochester, New York, and my family pretty soon after started moving into places in Minneapolis, Minnesota, upstate New York, New England, New Jersey, and we kind of did that round until I was about 16, where we finally moved back to New Jersey, and then I spent my high school years there.
Okay. So out of all that moving, was there any particular place that you really enjoyed?
I enjoyed all of them. Mm-hmm. Some of them were more than others, but I really liked living in New England. I lived in some of the old mill towns south of Boston, more closer to Providence, Rhode Island, and I really loved the people there. It was a good time in my life. It was probably like 5th and 6th and 7th grade, and started to make friends for the first time. From moving around, you don't make a lot of friends, and it was just a beautiful time in the life of our family. And like I said, I like New England. I would go back to live in New England even now, because it's got good memories, and it's just got a different culture, different vibe that I like. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Was there a reason why you bounced around so much?
Well, my dad worked for Kodak in Rochester in the 60s, and then he kind of got fed up with that and started moving around and doing other stuff. He was a photographic guy. He did photographic chemistry and
so just kind of chased the work.
Yeah, he was trying to chase the work, and so that just took us around and around. So,
So was it difficult to make that transition going from place to place, or was it kind of just...
No, it was. You kind of suddenly learn not to get attached to to places after a while. And so we lived sort of isolated lives. And like I said, by the time we got to New England, we were on a kind of like a stable basis. So we got to make friends and got to know the place a little better. So, yeah.
So did you know that you were going to eventually move from these places to place? Or was it just this is where we're going to be, and then
a couple
years down the line it was like, okay, I think it's time?
Yeah. No, it wasn't like that. We really didn't know how long we were going to stay in a place. Okay. So...
What was your family size? Just single child, or? No.
My mom and dad had 5 kids. There was 2 kids from the 50s, and then 3 kids from the 60s. So they kind of two families. So I'm the youngest of 5, the baby, and well spoiled, taken care of, and also neglected. That's what happens with babies. And so he had it pretty good that way because of that. Especially my next oldest brother and sister are a big part of my life, and we're really close, and especially for moving around and everything. So we share a lot of love and a lot of history.
They say a lot families that do that, obviously army families or people that are in the service or people who do move around a lot. The families tend to be stronger family units because where they don't make their friends because they get moved around a lot, they tend to become closer because they're not going anywhere. You're kind of stuck with each other.
Yeah, definitely. We're pretty tight, I think. Definitely. Yeah.
So once you guys settled down and kind of stayed in one spot for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
What was school like?
What was school like? Actually, I liked it there too. Like I said, it was like it wasn't like a very populous place. It was kind of sort of living out in nature for me. It wasn't like suburban or anything. School was good there. I liked it. It was a place called Norton, Massachusetts. There's a university there. It's very much like where I live now in Bloomsburg. It's a small, so that's kind of interesting to think about.
A college town.
Yep, small college town. And school was good. Like I said, it was, I don't know if it was a good school, but I certainly enjoyed it. I did some like independent study stuff there. I kind of like blossomed a little bit academically, I guess. I don't know. But, or squeaked, but, faked something. But yeah, it was good. We got, it was like exploring certain things. It was like in the 70s too, so it was like 76. It was like things were going on in Boston. It was like the bicentennial. It was a big year, that kind of thing. So it was fun.
So did you have because you said you blossomed in education and stuff. Was there a particular subject that drew you to a certain area, or?
I don't know why you even brought it up, but I did. I liked history and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I remember doing this thing on like Anglo-Saxon history and I don't know, Beowulf and Alfred the Great and that kind of thing.
So then,
like that.
From what I'm understanding, then it kind of launched into acting stuff because with Beowulf and stuff. Because wasn't that a play?
Yeah. It's a big poem.
Yeah.
That not so much actually. My folks had a friend from New Jersey when we lived in New Jersey when I was younger than that. And I would stay with him like a couple summers, I don't know, like in the 70s, whatever. He lived in New Jersey, where we eventually moved back to. And he introduced me to theater, really. My mom and my dad always took us to theater, musicals and stuff like that. So I saw a lot of really great, musicals from that era and stuff. But this friend of ours took me to see theater, legit theater, like in New York in these summers. So I saw, a lot of Shakespeare in the park and stuff like that. He introduced me to Shakespeare. So that's when I really kind of got into it.
Okay.
Watching the movies. We go to like revival movie houses and, just all kinds of crazy stuff. There was a guy named, I can't remember his name now. It's like he showed me a whole range of stuff that was going on then that was just fascinating to me. So that kind of got me into theater.
Do you remember by chance what your first role was?
My first role in a play, or
either
to do something?
Yeah, just acting in general. Yeah.
Well, yes, actually, I was a shy kid, and I had social anxiety problems. I still do to some extent, and so living in this mill town in Norton, they did a Halloween haunted house. This was in the 70s. This is pretty far back. They didn't do them a lot. And it was in a deserted grain mill in a place called Mansfield, Massachusetts. I think the JCs put it on. And they, they did pretty good. Not that I knew any better. I was probably like 12 or something. In any case, I was pretty small at the time. I was I'm a small person. I'm not a little person, but I'm a small person. And so they had this haunted house, and they needed someone to be in the Satan room. So a 12-year-old boy would mix in
in the Satan room.
Would mix in with the people who were wandering through, and with a group that wasn't wandering through, and the guy was playing Satan would say there is someone who has the most venial sins, and he must be thrown into the steaming pit, into the underworld. And they would go find me.
Okay.
So the chubby little 12-year-old. I don't know what he was doing that was so bad. So they would take me, and then I would start screaming, and I would struggle with them. And my voice hadn't changed yet, so I had a very high-pitched scream. And they would take me, and they would take me by the arms and legs, and they would toss me into a pit with a smoke machine in it, and I would do the whole, descending into, the yell. So that was my first actual experience.
That's actually really, really cool. To sneak somebody into into a group that you would think are just normal people. I wish more horror things would do that. We go to them every year. Dude. That's kind of our we go. That would be a sweet idea.
That would be awesome.
Because they're they just took somebody.
Yeah, and they can rule.
I know, and I would actually hang on to people, that kind of thing.
Don't leave me, Mom.
That's awesome.
So that was my first actual experience of performing. And and I had a certain amount of effectiveness, and I think, and I saw what kind of power you could have by doing that. So by that time, I was hooked, and that the thing I was talking about with my friend who was taking me to Shakespeare and stuff kind of happened at the same kind of period of time. So for a kid, I think who, as a youngest child, you kind of get lost a little bit. So I think suddenly became more visible to people by performing. So, I wanted to go with that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no,
absolutely. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I kind of was pushed in a similar direction. Like, I didn't live close enough to New York that my parents would take me to the shows or anything. But my teachers would always say, "Oh, he's on the shy side. Maybe acting and theater and that kind of stuff will bring him out." And it just kind of like stuck. And I don't know if it was the first role I did, but I played Tiny Tim because I was on the smaller side, and I still am. I mean, but you don't forget that kind of stuff. The first role and what kind of like pushes you forward. I mean, you have a much cooler role than I think Tiny Tim does, like with the horror haunted house kind of thing. Just because like I've always been a fan of horror stuff, and I almost wish that my first experience was something horror related instead of Christmas.
Well, Christmas Carol is kind of a horror ghost story.
There's some scary elements to that.
Like we do. I mean, at the theater that I work for, we do that show for kids a lot.
Yeah.
And like that is a heavy show. It's a really heavy show.
Being visited by spirits.
Yeah, so.
I mean, I saw what was the anniversary for this year's Christmas Carol, or not this year or last year's?
What the anniversary?
Yeah, was it 40?
Oh yeah, 40 years.
Yeah,
for the theater.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the first time I ever saw you guys do Christmas Carol. So I just thought it was very well done. But the one piece that sticks out, probably more than any, is Jim as Marley being drug off stage by the chains. It was amazing. And every night I saw the show, I would have to come up to him and be like, it still blew me away.
Yeah.
Because he was pushing himself off the stage, but it looked like he was just being like ripped off.
Yeah. I remember I would watch that from the wings every night because it was really good. He's Jim and a lot of those folks were in a mime company in Chicago before they came out here.
Okay.
So that's probably why he's got it.
That's right. Because there was a DVD or something that was released about him, or like the short with him and his wife.
Yeah.
But let's see. So we left off with high school, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So where did we go from there? Because I know from talking with you in the past, the Pet Sematary was in like your early 20s kind of thing.
Did you do theater in high school?
I did. That was the first time I was in an actual play. So I was like 16 or something. And again, I hadn't, and then I wanted to do more again. And so I did some plays in high school and did some like theater competitions. And actually was doing, had a couple shows while I was still in high school at a theater company, very much like BTE, called the Whole Theater Company. Olympia Dukakis, sorry, was one of the people there, and also doing like Riverside Shakespeare Company in New York. So I was doing stuff while I was still in high school.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
That's impressive.
Were you the only one of your siblings that were into theater and play?
No.
Or was it because your family? It seemed like the way you described it, your family was very into the theater, play, photography, movies.
Yeah.
So was it like the bug for your entire family, or what?
I think all of us. I don't want to know if all of us were in shows. My oldest sister Mary is a theater person now. She works in New Jersey. She directs plays and used to act in them an awful lot. So we share information and we go to see plays and stuff all the time. My sister Julie is a singer. My oldest brother Steve was a singer also, and my brother Mark kind of carried on the photographic thing. So right now he owns his own production company in New York, So all of us, and like my mom and dad, were like into all kinds of art. So they just encourage that, and we all just kind of do that, and we talk that. It's just great. So it's not. So I wasn't doing it in isolation at all.
Yeah. So it was like very encouraged in the family. Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
That's
And I mean, I'm sure it was a great way to like. I know you didn't necessarily move around as much at this point, but a great way to like be like, this is who I am, kind of thing. Like, because like, as an actor, we can move to all these different locations, but our craft is always the same. No matter where we are, like, the cast is always going to bond with each other, regardless of if you live in that same town or not with them. So I feel like by saying that, did you feel that it was easier to stay grounded once you did shows with people, or didn't it matter?
Grounded how?
Like, since you came off of moving around from all these different locations to we're here in one spot, was it easier to stay grounded, like, oh, we're going to be here because you were
definitely
becoming more involved with those different activities?
Definitely getting connected to the outside world. Do you know what I mean? Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. And like, I think I see it now with like young people who come to BTE and are in shows. It's like, you find your people, you find your tribe or your family. And so I felt like I definitely did when I was doing shows. You find the people that you can connect with and know can speak their language, and it's just different.
Yeah.
at that point, doing high school plays, and you have a couple under your belt. Is there a certain production that you did at this point in time that kind of still sticks out, that was a favorite of yours, or a certain style of theater, like more on the Shakespeare, or like, because like Shakespeare has like kind of like some scary, some humor, like there's different themes to it. Is there like a certain type that you kind of enjoyed doing more?
I think I was just romantically, obsessed with Shakespeare a little bit. So whenever I got to do that, I was like very happy.
Yeah.
And usually they were just like little tiny parts, like, my lord, he doth deny to come. That was my line. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd like take the bus into New York every day so I could like play all the messengers, in
That's cool.
production. It's like, but that's how you get to learn. That's how you get to start to be a part of that culture and learn from other people about not only how they're doing what they're doing, but what the world is like. And I see that happening with people, younger people who are coming to the theater now. And I feel like the theater I work at, it educates people in the whole world of what theater is, and they go on and they do stuff because they know what it's about. It's cool. Yeah.
So, you seem to have done really well with Shakespeare stuff from the beginning, from what it sounds like. Was that at any point something that feared you? Because I know that's something that like you were afraid of, because it's
doing
so
Shakespeare
different from like just a regular straight play kind of thing.
I think it was, for me, actually the opposite. Because, like I said, like I was kind of obsessed with it early on. So even when I was auditioning for regular plays, I would do like a Shakespeare monologue.
Okay.
Mostly an imitation of a great actor from that time who, did films and stuff. So I was basically imitating what I loved.
Right.
So I did that for years and years, honestly. So I probably, I don't think I understood contemporary plays as much as I understood Shakespeare, because I wasn't reading them, and I also probably wasn't seeing them up until the time we returned to New Jersey or whatever.
Okay.
When you're handed a play like obviously Shakespeare was your wheelhouse, that was your comfortability. If they when they hand you a play that you're into, like, what is your process of getting ready for that? Do you read the book, do research, because obviously at this point in time there's no smartphones, no computers, no.
You mean like now or
no, like
then?
At that point, yeah.
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess so. It was like the 70s, the 80s. It was like you went to the library.
The thing is, I want to try to definitely put the point out there is that you're still teenager at that point, and I think a lot goes to showing a work ethic. And if you're 16 years old and you're like, and this is your passion, this is what you love doing, you know, if you hand some normal 16-year-old kid who just, hey, I'm going to be in the high school play, we're going to do this, he'll show up, read a script, and just be like, I am here to save the day, just kind of reading it. Where someone who's into theater is going to say, okay, this is what I'm working on. Okay, this is kind of what the person's into, and then you read it, you dive into it. So
what would you do?
yeah, it shows a clear path of where you're going to go there. Are you going to be the kid who does the research, or are you going to be the kid who's just doing it to do it?
Oh, well, I think for me, like part of the Shakespeare thing was like a convergence with loving history too. And you know, you can always find books on like the characters in the Shakespeare, especially the history plays, Richard III and Henry VI, Henry V and VI, and stuff like that. So part of that was an obsession with history. So I knew some about the characters that Shakespeare was writing about outside of the plays themselves. So that, and we still do that. That's still a big part of like, for me at least, like finding out about what happened in certain time periods, what was going on in the world at this particular time that will never ever be repeated again. You know, I'm in my 50s now, and I look back 20 years, and like it's like 20 years ago was the world, the way people thought, the way people think, social things are so entirely different. So if you go back 400 years, you got to like make an even greater leap of the imagination.
Yeah, 100%.
For your research and stuff.
The day-to-day life has it changes every. I mean, if you're saying 20-year gap to a 400-year gap, it's incredible. Yeah. But to kind of go back to that last point,
sorry.
like that's okay. Like going like as I had never done theater. I'm not an actor or anything like that. But when I go to see something, especially when I was in high school, and they're like, you have to go see the play, or you go see a play, or even to this day, if you go see a high school play, you can see the kid that's just like, I'm going to be in theater because my buddy's doing it, and then you can see the kid that's like, I love theater because he's putting time and effort into the research of that character and how to go about being that character. Yeah. You're kind of transforming into somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
number 2.
Yeah.
Although,
did you have, like, when you were in high school and stuff, did you have much push to do that outside work? I mean, obviously, with Shakespeare, there is an amount of work that you have to do just to, like, understand what's going on, because it's not straightforward.
Yeah.
Because I remember being in shows in high school and stuff, and it was kind of like that situation where it was like, the director was like either a teacher or something, and they would just hand you a script, and you would go out, you'd say the lines, like, they didn't really push in-depth acting, like, because like when I work with students now, and we're developing a story and stuff, they'll be like, oh, well, this kid's having a bad day because he got an F. I'm like, well, why did he get an F? And like I keep asking these questions to like help them dive deeper into this character.
Yeah. Cool.
Where the teachers that I had in high school didn't do stuff like that. So was that a similar experience, or did they kind of have you do that?
I had 2 really good teachers, drama teachers, theater teachers in high school, and one of whom had been like an actor in New York at theaters that are still around, classic Shakespeare stage, I guess. So he kind of understood for kind of firsthand theater stuff. So he worked with us in a way that I think probably directors work with actors now. So I think that was really helpful. That was really helpful to me, and I think that helped. I don't think about that much, but that's kind of true.
You kind of it was your building blocks.
Yeah, I think so. Yep. James and Renee Lavin, they were fantastic. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like how when Nikolai's going into it, it's a cool thing that he kind of even taught me. I've opened my eyes to different like movies or acting or even going to see plays where how he was saying they're like, well, I had a bad day today because I got an F. And then you kind of have to put yourself in that person's head, like, well, did I not get sleep? Was I stressing for the test? Was I just not caring? Was I doing this? So
making choices.
And then even as a person like who goes to see a play now or watches a movie, when I watch a movie that maybe that I didn't like the first time, or if I'm like I didn't understand that, now I kind of think about what the person on the other end was doing, because like I grew up an athlete, sports. You know, I mean, I didn't get to I always enjoyed movies and music, but I just kind of took for granted what my eyes were seeing on the screen. But now, knowing the art to it and learning more about the art to it, I think, well, what was the actor thinking when they were in that point, and how did they go into learning how to play that role? And it's like it's like the veil's being pulled down. So like going to see a live show, it's just like, oh, I can see why they probably went that route, or I wonder how they got prepared for that thing. And now I have more questions on that end of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a neat experience.
And like,
cool.
speaking on that, like, he's not a big fan of like musicals and stuff. And I mean, I know there's not
I have a hard time with musicals.
Right. And I mean,
and I love music, which is weird. Like,
Well, it's a different thing.
yeah,
It is, yeah.
And I mean, I get that there are people out there who don't like musicals and stuff, but I feel like I don't know if, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you've ever actually experienced a real one, like
it has
versus
to,
going to like a high school production.
yeah, it has
versus,
to.
like a Broadway show.
The topic of it has to somewhat appeal to me.
Okay.
So if the musical is about something more on the darker, mysterious side, and it has, because I'm into that, so I'd be like, oh, okay, I can find that. Like the Beetlejuice musical, I would probably be into because I'm into the topic.
Yeah.
But the same thing can be said about like when we went to go see the show at BTE. Going in, I had no idea what I was going in to watch, which I kind of liked, but because by the time I left, I was like, that was unbelievable. So I think now that I'm being more open to things, I think I would just walk in and just, don't tell me it's a musical, we'll just show up and then I'll just experience it.
I guess that's more of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because like you don't necessarily have to like the musical aspect, but there's so much different things that go into making a play and a musical, like just all the technical stuff of like.
I think I'd rather see it on a play environment than sitting and putting it in my DVD player and watching it.
The musical, you mean?
Yes.
Huh. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much more exciting live.
Yeah,
It's a different environment.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And it also depends too, because like even when I went to go see the show, the last show that you guys were doing, I sat in the corner so that I wouldn't take any better seats off of Forever Brilliant Thing. I sat in the corner behind the chairs so that other people could experience, because I've been in that situation already when you guys did when you did the Nether. So I know what it feels like to be on that stage regardless. So I picked a seat that I knew I wouldn't take away someone else's wonderful experience from. But then of course Richie comes out and he's like,
He finds you.
Can you sit here instead? And I'm like, I guess. Like I was trying to like just be in the corner and stuff. Yeah. But it was cool.
Yeah. So we're done get out of the high school era now.
Okay.
Now you're adult, graduated. Are you still doing productions and shows? And where are we at with that? With your
I moved. Well, I actually hung out in New Jersey for a couple years, and I worked, and still tried to look for things in the city. I was like a half hour out of New York City, and then I moved in with my brother Mark, who was living down in 17th Street at that time, and I took classes for a couple of years. I didn't go to university or college. I went to Herbert Berghoff Studios, HB Studios, and did the whole range of kind of education stuff, scene study, vocal work, and fencing, and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
For a couple of years. I mean, it was like most after high school things. A lot of it was not so much about the education, but I did learn quite a nice things there. So that's what I did. I hung out in New York for quite a while.
I'm sure fencing came in handy, like especially being Shakespeare in your wheelhouse. All those like stage combat kind of.
Yeah, I hope it did. I remember taking the class, and like the guy think you got to put your tongue back in your mouth, because I would like stick my tongue out because I was trying so hard. But I love fencing, stage fighting of that kind. It's all Renaissance and that kind of thing. So I don't know if I was any good at it then, but I always loved doing it.
Mm-hmm. Do you still do it now? Like every now and again, you just find that fencing sword and.
I have a sword.
Yeah.
Yes, that someone gave me as a gift for a play. So yeah, I'll take it out every once in a while. I don't really know. I know 1, 2, 3, 4, but I don't really. Right. I probably couldn't do it. But I do watch. Sometimes I watch good good movies with good sword fighting, fencing in it. I can recommend them too if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Classic Zorro.
Cazadora.
Zorro.
Oh, Zorro, that's pretty good. The Anthony Hopkins ones, they do good. They do good work in
Really?
that. Yeah. Yep.
See, that's the one thing I feel
But I think fencing. Besides Shakespeare, I think Zorro and the Three Amigos or the Three Musketeers.
Three Musketeers. Yeah.
I feel like that's the one thing I'm particularly missing that I want is
What?
the stage combat world of things. I don't know too much about any of that. I mean, like, I can fake it and play it on the safe side of things because I know, like, how to cheat things with camera angles and all that kind of stuff, but I've never known how to do it on stage. So that's definitely
I
something.
take him to pro wrestling. He doesn't get it.
Yes, but I feel like that's a different thing versus being, like, stabbed on stage.
That's true, with a piece of metal.
Right.
They use
but
kendo sticks.
I just, I don't know.
It's acting.
No, it is.
No, it is. It's exactly the same
It's
thing.
physical
Yeah.
acting.
It's like both knowing what your moves you're going to make, right? It's
Yeah.
It's like playing physical movement.
Yeah. So when he was getting me into movies and theaters and stuff, he was like, "All right, here's how I want you to like." He was putting me in a different mind state. So then I was like, "I'm taking him to a wrestling show." I was like, "Just don't look at it as like they're just dudes. Like think of it as it's theater. It's theater. Yeah."
You weren't buying it, huh?
No, actually, I was. I stepped back and I watched it as a show, and it was fun performance. And then the last match was a friend of ours who does a podcast, Andy Heder. He came out and he was defending his title, and I like sank. It wasn't a performance anymore.
It became real.
It got serious.
It was real.
Uh-huh.
Like, regardless of what happened and stuff. Because, one, I had never really been to a wrestling show or anything, so I didn't want it to be that the one show I go to, he loses his title, and I'm like, it's my fault. Like, I shouldn't have came.
See, that one experience you had, like mentally, that's because we feed off each other. So I'm learning things about his background, and he's learning things about my background. So that one moment that you had where you were worried about Andy and the title, and even though it's scripted, predetermined, you became a fan. So like when you watch a football game, or you're like, why do they get so excited about their football team? Like you go sit in the stands and you're like, all right, I have to tie my shoes a certain way. I have to sit in the seat because you get like superstitious, and then you get those weird things, and so you kind of got sucked in. You became you got that's awesome.
Did he win?
He did win.
Okay.
He did win, thankfully.
Okay.
So I was like, don't have to worry about that.
Where was it? Where is
Hamburg?
Oh, really?
Yeah, the old Hamburg Fieldhouse. Like it used to be like where like the old school like Andre and Hogan used to wrestle, and now like a new company. Andre was there, yep. But now they kind of took it over, and it's like a newer company, like an indie show.
Okay,
it's fun. It's a lot of history.
Do you know
it's like a Shakespeare theater, but like in a different aspect. Yeah, because like the greats used to perform there and wrestle there, and now it's like the next version of that, but not in the same scale. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
My brother and I used to watch that. This is like way back in the 60s.
Like Chief J. Strongbro,
yes,
Bruno
exactly.
Sammartino.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
On the black and white TV.
Yep. Yeah, that's my weak spot in the wrestling. I'm a sucker for it.
So was that by chance somewhat of an inspiration to learn stage combat type things for theater?
What's that?
From watching wrestling?
No. I was a little tiny boy at that point.
Okay.
You would have been a good manager, like the guy on the outside of the ring who annoys and kind of cheats.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes they're the best actors of the night.
It's all theater.
Yeah, because they had to take over the crowd. They had to get people to boo them and hate them. Like, it's fun. Distract the referees so they can do their thing. It's all production.
So you talked about like certain movies and stuff that you like when you were doing Shakespeare and stuff. Or like when you went to audition, you would look at these people that inspired you. Was there anybody that you can remember that specifically inspired you?
Oh, like
you imitated an actor?
Yeah, absolutely, no question. At that point, actor named Laurence Olivier, if you've ever heard of him, was like generally agreed to be like the greatest actor of them all at that time period. He was older then, but he was like the first. I don't know if he was the first, but he did a number of Shakespeare movies, Richard III, Henry V, As You Like It, he was like he promoted Shakespeare to a wider audience, and his movies are still great. So at that point I loved a lot of actors that my mom and my dad loved: Laurence Olivier, Alec Guinness, most of them British, Peter O'Toole, just all these guys who are not quite around anymore. They're gone now, but they're worth looking at. So I enjoy. And at that point too, they were showing movies. There was no Netflix. There was no you were watching stuff on the afternoon movie out of New York, and what they were showing was older movies and mostly these guys. And so there wasn't a voluminous amount of stuff that you can watch. You were kind of put on whatever was in front of you at that point. Yeah, exactly.
You didn't have the research to go find it.
Yeah.
That's my gram still upset. Like the AMC classic movies, she'll still sit there all day and watch them. She loves it.
I do too. So that's what the culture was now. Now you've got cultures, subcultures within cultures within cultures. You can watch. You can go any place you want entertainment wise. So I think it's very different. I think the culture was very, very much unified in those days because everybody was watching the same thing. There were the choices were very slim.
Yeah.
So you'd go into work. Yeah, I'm assuming you would go into work and you say, "Did you see that on Friday night?" Because literally the entire nation was watching.
It's all
one of
time.
5 things on TV. So it's interesting.
Now we got stuck in a generation, and I think a generation is kind of changing a bit too, where for a while there was like, oh yeah, I could watch just exactly what I want to watch because I have the choice to find what I'm only into. But I think the generation now, and certain people in my generation, where they're like, oh, okay, now with the choice, instead of have the open choice to watch anything I possibly want at any point in time, where back then on TV you were kind of just stuck what was there. I think a lot of people are now taking the opportunity to find things out of their comfort zone and try it. I think we're getting back to that point now, especially with the internet and YouTube. Someone can just type in this thing, and then the next video pops up, and I'm not into that, but they might say, I'll stick around a little bit and see what it's into it. And I think that's a cool thing that's happening now.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah,
you can find so many incredible things that you couldn't before.
Yeah,
whatever rabbit hole you want to go down, you can go down it, and it's great.
Sometimes it can get bad.
I know. You got to be careful.
Yeah,
hooking your ear up to electronics all the time.
So when you're taking classes, you're learning different techniques outside, and you're kind of taking that step outside of an education process, and you're doing it more you're kind of focusing now that you want to make this a career.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was your first production or play or anything you did that was at your adulthood that now that you've gotten training, you're doing all this different stuff?
Well, the first production? Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of just started that in high school. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I don't know if those were paid things. I don't think they were. A lot of stuff that you do in New York when you're trying to get something going are unpaid. I did Shakespeare's in parks and in courtyards where we get shit on by pigeons, and people would throw eggs on us from buildings while we were doing Shakespeare. I worked for some different theater groups, theater troupe companies, Oscar Wilde, things like that. I did get, there was an actor named Tony Randall. I don't know if you remember The Odd Couple. He started a theater company, and I was in some of those shows, in 3 of those shows. They were on Broadway. So I had small parts in those, and that was cool. So it was a lot of working at catering jobs and
the stereotypical being a waiter and
working at temp jobs and trying to be an actor for a long time. During that time too, did some summer stock and stuff like that. Do all the things that actors do.
Now, did you adjust your waiter hours and stuff? Okay, I can only take hours this time because I know at these point in times I have to be at certain places to audition and.
Yeah.
So
that's
so you
that's
take
always
jobs
a
with more
part of it.
liberties. Yeah.
that's
Now,
right.
what is the process like? As for someone who may not know, like auditioning for something, like you go into a production and you want to. I'm just going to a Shakespeare that I know off the top of my head, like Romeo and Juliet. Like I'm going to audition for Romeo. Like, what's the okay? I know Romeo's probably the harder one to get, but that's what I want to be. But I'll maybe go for this role because it's probably easier to get part of it in, and then I can show them what I'm made of. Like, what's the process going into something like that?
Well, that's a good question because it's been so long since I've been in that process that everything has changed since when I was doing it. But I think it depends on what you have in your what you have to audition with.
What were some of your experiences at that point in time?
I never for in terms of doing Shakespeare, I remember like doing parts that I would never be probably cast as. I remember doing the Macbeth from the Scottish play and for a production of Macbeth. I always did the big stuff because that's what I wanted to do. That's what gave me great joy and happiness. So I got some smaller parts. That's what's great about the place where I work now. I work at a place called BTE, Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble, and I've been there for like 20 years. And I know I'm skipping ahead, but I've been able to play roles there that I wouldn't probably never have been cast as just to look at me from in any other place, like in New York or elsewhere.
Because you're like a small fish in a big pond.
Exactly. And because honestly, I feel like I didn't start to get educated in theater until I actually came to the place where I work now. Because I work all the time there, and I work with like really good actors that I was able to watch and to absorb their knowledge and their wisdom about performance, and I feel like that's where I got my education. When you're like out in New York or any other big city trying to learn something, especially if you don't have a graduate degree or whatever, or you haven't been like properly trained, I guess, you learn as you go along. So like when you're
probably could be very cutthroat too, like I'm not going to train this guy because then he could take my spot, where you're at now is more of a supportive, everyone just looking to help each other instead of being like cutthroat and competition.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Awesome.
Honestly, I can even attest for that, like being the intern. Like for me, Shakespeare scared the crap out of me, but you guys were so welcoming and were like, if you want to sit down with us at any point, like we'll go over scripts and all this kind of stuff with you. And I remember we had that recital that we did, and I had to do I think it was a section in Macbeth, or no, it was in Hamlet, where he's deciding whether or not to kill his uncle, and he's hiding out in the bushes. And just going through that with you guys, like it was scary, but working with you guys helped me see that it doesn't have to be. So I completely understand what it would be like for you to go around these. Now, I mean, I'm sure actors have come and gone from BT since.
Sure.
But I'm sure the dynamic of things haven't changed too much, where it's all like we learn from each other kind of thing.
No, that's what's great about it.
It definitely radiates off that way too, as someone who was only there the first time ever. I grew up in a very competition-based life with sports and very cutthroat, and someone may try to help you, but at the end of the day, if you get hurt or you mess up that play, I can slide in and I can take that position now. And then when you watch movies and TVs and you hear about upcoming actors in New York or LA, it is very cutthroat. And then when going to the first time being at BTE, you can definitely tell everyone on the stage was like a family. It just, without even them talking about it, it just shows. Like example, we went to, I hate to go back to wrestling, but it's a way I can analogy it, put it together. The outbreak shows. Everyone in the locker room is looking out for each other's best interests in the locker room. Where a different show would be like, if he goes out and sucks, I could be the main event next week. And that doesn't really happen. Like that, it shows at where you're at now that it's a good environment.
Yeah. I don't really know what it's like out now. I think theater people generally are pretty supportive of each other.
I mean,
as a culture, what
they seem to be.
Yeah.
Just from like going to see shows and stuff, and then making a post online, they'll like it or share it or want to talk to you because of it. So it seems like they're willing to do it. But having that close knit, like, 'cause, 10 or less kind of deal, it's always nice because they're always there. But it also helps for, at least in my mind, for like how you said you learned a lot from starting at BT and stuff, because it's a constant cycle of your shows. Like, you start rehearsal, the second week a show is running or something, and then it just keeps, like, there's no real, like, a show has ended, but we don't already have a show in rehearsal or something.
That's sometimes the case, but we're always working on something. We're always working ahead.
Where, like, when you were in New York, it was, there might be gaps where
there might be years gaps. Like when I was there, there'd be years where I didn't do anything. So if you're not doing anything, people take classes and stuff like that to keep their hand in and keep fresh with what they're doing with their craft and all that kind of stuff. But, like, nothing beats performing in front of real people. So, that's like, I've been, for better or worse. I'm sure people are sometimes bored with the actors at BT because they see them all the time. However, you get really flexible when you're doing stuff all the time, and it ceases to become a big deal or too intimidating. You find a way of working that is workmanlike and also like leaves a lot of space for kind of inspiration to, I don't know, that sounds stupid, but like,
no.
But like the being habituated to working helps. It might take away something too, and we usually don't talk about that too. It might take away something, but I think on the whole, it gives you something that can't really be duplicated, and I think other actors who come in, they recognize that, because as an actor in the world, you can't work all the time unless you're a few people, I think.
Yeah. Now, when you're living in the city and you're going through stuff, slowly starting to transition to the movie, but were you auditioning for? Did you ever audition for any other movies before this?
Yes, I did. I was auditioning. I had signed with an agent, and they were sending me out all the time for stuff. I didn't get much.
Was it discouraging?
Sometimes. But honestly, it was like early. It was really early on where I got these two movies. It was more after I did the two movies that I did. And I always did like extra work and stuff. In the early mid '80s. I did extra work all the time. Why are you smiling, Nikolai?
No, that's because that's the path I'm on at the moment. Like, it's just a bunch of extra work and stuff, but it's the being there that is enjoyable.
Yeah. So I did. So I was doing that, but then I got these two parts in movies pretty quickly, one after the other. And I think the one that I got first, I actually did second. You know what I mean?
What was the other one?
The other one was called Blue Steel.
Okay.
It's an '80s movie. Jamie Lee Curtis. It's a cop movie.
That's why I sound familiar. I remember Blue. I was like,
you remember that?
Jamie Lee Curtis?
Yeah. So I did that first, and that was like a night shoot in a supermarket in New York City. And
what did you do in that role?
I played a cashier who was getting held up by the actor. I can't remember, Tom Sizemore, if you know him. And it was there's a very bad. He gets held up. And is obviously traumatized. You'll see my young callow face in it. So, it was a night shoot. It was fun. Had a good time. But that actually, I can't remember. I think that was shot first, but I actually got it second, and I got Pet Sematary second, but actually I can't remember. It was all mixed up. But actually after that, I got signed with an agent, and then I was going out for lots of movies and stuff. Didn't get a thing.
Yeah.
For years, I did some theater then, But that was the time when I started to come back to BTE because I was already associated with them, like from '85.
Oh wow!
So I come out here to BTE and did a couple shows, did Christmas Carol, did a TIC, did a touring show, and I was like, "This is great.
So
I want to come back here." But I still wanted to go to New York and see what was happening.
Not to skip too far ahead, but is that when you were recently associated with BTE? Also, when you worked with Box of Light on that tour, or did that come after?
That came way after.
Okay.
That came when I finally did come back to came back to Bloomsburg permanently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
now going into the Pet Sematary audition, did you know what you were auditioning for?
Yeah, I did.
So you knew you were going for the role of Zelda.
Yep. I mean, I didn't know the book, and I didn't know the story at the time. What they do is they give you sides, like a couple of pages of script, and they say, "This is what it is. Go do this." and I knew it was supposed to be scary and all that kind of stuff. I think I went in I was sent out by an agent, and it was a kind of a cattle call audition. They were all submitted. So I was in a large room full of a lot of, like I've told you before, I was probably 24 at the time. So I was in a room full of, young teen boys, like 12, 13, whatever. So did my audition for, I can't remember the name of the casting director. I think they were nice.
So they knew coming into it, because this is something I researched, and then you actually kind of got a little secret to it. They knew they were casting a boy to play Zelda for the most part, because most of the room was filled, you said, with boys.
The room was filled with boys, so there was obviously a reason why they wanted boys. I don't know what that is, and I've never been told. But I have.
Do you think maybe they had another one, like a room for another day? They checked girls, or like.
I doubt it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the process to that.
I would doubt it. I mean, that's who they were casting. So
what is that room like? Obviously, you're sitting shoulder to shoulder in a room full of people, and you're all going for the same thing. Do you talk? Do you hey, what's your name? Or you just kind of stay quiet? Or
it's always very different. I remember different circumstances. Sometimes it is congenial. Sometimes it is like what you say, congenial yet weirdly competitive and weird.
Yeah.
So you'll have people who are warming up very conspicuously. And
what are you going to do when you get in there?
Taking a space. Not necessarily that, but kind of asserting their presence and that kind of thing. And then you'll have people who, keeping to themselves or studying their script or whatever. That was a little bit different because, they were young people.
What was the script that they gave you? Was it
it was exactly what was in the.
So they gave you all three scenes, or was it the run-up scene, or was it the?
I think they gave me they didn't give me the one. They gave me the two scenes where she speaks. Actually, one of the scenes was just her dying and eating soup. Remember?
Yeah.
So they gave me the two scenes, which it's 4 pages of script.
Yeah.
It's not a lot. So I think I memorized those and did them, and what left, and then forgot about it. It was exciting, but it's like.
So I do have a question for you
Yeah.
when it comes to memorizing stuff for auditions and whatnot. Do you because I know you direct things every now and again as well. Do you prefer when somebody comes in that when they're auditioning, that they have their sides memorized, or have it with them? Because I've been told that if you have it memorized, it gives the impression that this is the final product.
Boy, I don't even know. I mean, I know what you're talking about, and I understand what you're saying. I don't know. I'm not a casting director, and it doesn't. To me, it doesn't matter. To me, even if you're reading it and you're good and you seem like you know what you're doing and you're being alive.
Yeah,
that's all I care about. I don't care if you memorize it or not. But I'm not in that position.
Right.
Put that.
It's your own style.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I have no preference either with things, but I also don't cast things too often either.
Yeah.
But it's just something as an actor, looking at that, do you hope that they don't care either way? They're more there to see you than how well you can memorize a page.
Yeah.
I have heard from other actors that I know who are out there now. I mean, I haven't been out there in decades, but they do learn. They learn what they're doing, what they're going to do.
Okay.
And they do it. You know what I mean? They give you everything they got, and that's part of the. I guess that's, at least for the actors that I know, that's part of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of you. Because I'm sure also because you have to learn a lot in a short time, especially if you're working on a TV show or something like that. There's no time to learn stuff. You got to learn it in like a day.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll walk up to you and say, "Oh, this line didn't work, so you need to memorize this one instead."
Exactly. I would be interested to see how that works. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we take 3 weeks to learn a play. I don't know how those people do that.
3
You know what I
weeks.
mean? 3.5 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
That last play was a lot. That dialogue was incredible.
So it's like a week of tech in itself. I mean, you guys did a full week, right, for this one?
Yeah.
But it's insane how fast things get put together and everything. Just
So, back to the audition real quick. I just got couple quick questions on that. What did you? Is there what was your mindset going in? What did you channel something? Obviously, was there something you put in your head? Okay, I'm going to go this route, or how was that process?
30 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I remember liking it because it was theatrical.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just I didn't really know about what film acting was. It was kind of large and kind of, theatrical, dramatic, whatever. So I did that audition, and then they called me back for another one to audition for the director. It was a preliminary audition was the first one, and then I auditioned for Mary Lambert, who was the director. So I was like, oh, okay, so there's a...
Did you do anything different between each audition?
I did. I think whatever the character or the voice that I was working with was the same. I think. I'm guessing. But I think I got to work more with a little physicality when I was working for her. I've told this story before, but it is the truth. And so I may be being repetitive. But when she was there, we were sitting at a table like this, a long conference table. The second audition was for her in a conference room. It wasn't even like a theater stage or, So I was like, okay, I'm going to make her the camera and I'm going to be the character. So there's actor stories like this.
Yeah.
So I got under the table, you know what I mean? And I crept up under the table, and then I slowly said my lines and I got on the table and I started crawling toward her, so that by the end of the whatever little speech,
you'll never get out of bed again.
I was right up to her,
That's cool.
face. So I was trying to be creative with the space. And, but I think it was pretty much. It was something that and I'm kind of like this. I think I get as an actor, I get a pretty immediate sensation or sense of what I want to do. Almost always. I mean, it usually has to do with the sound of the character's voice, and then from that, for me, the physicality, if there is one, comes out of that. So I think I'm an oral actor. You know what I mean?
That makes a lot of sense, because I know we're bouncing a lot here between the movie and then obviously our experience with the BTE and stuff, but the character Zelda, I mean, if you can ask any horror fan or anyone, what are the top 10 creepiest characters or creepiest horror movie moments, and Zelda normally makes the list of especially the way you portrayed it, how there was two iconic. Obviously, you were only in 2 scenes, but the one where it looks like you're laying kind of on your belly, and then you quick turn.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like a natural movement, but it's creepy.
Yeah.
And then just your facial expression, and then when you're huddled in the corner, and then turn, and then run, and your fingers are. You know what I mean? It's an awesome moment, and it sticks in people's heads. And I know a lot of people, when we talked about this interview, they're like, I don't like that. I had to turn the TV off when Zelda came on because it now there's a lot of scary stuff in the thing, but when they hear the rain, they're like nope, and they cover you're the eye covering moment. You know what I mean?
It's so funny.
Yeah. And then when I seen you at BTE for the first time, obviously the only time I've ever seen you was in Pet Sematary, and then in this play you kind of play a dad who has gone through some pretty traumatic things. You're taking care of a son who's extremely autistic, and being that type of parent is challenging enough already, because obviously there's a learning curve to that. And you can tell in your character, me going back to the thing where you have to kind of look at the character and see what they're going through to understand the character better and enjoy the play more. And you portrayed that like it was amazing, and like kind of you could look like you came in from a hard day of work and maybe had a drink or two in the car on the way home. When you kind of walk in, you're like, and then your voice and the way you're like when you get stern and scream, but you're still trying to be patient because you know the son's going through things. You're a very great actor. You're good at what you do. So for being in a movie where you have a killer kid, you're burying dead animals, and then a apparition from the past comes back, and it's only in the movie for a couple seconds, but your couple seconds stand out in that movie. I can definitely attribute to your acting skill because you were up against that whole play. I mean, the kid who played the main role is absolutely phenomenal. Like
amazing.
If he doesn't get more work besides that, people are crazy because he's super talented at what he does. But your character stood out just as much as his did because of your ability as well. It was awesome to watch. It was a really cool experience.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when we left there, I was like, I can definitely see why the character Zelda was in the movie this much, but it sticks in people's brains. And I think a lot of that goes to your ability as what you do as an actor.
I hope so. I don't know. It's really odd because it's not in any way. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak to it, but it seems like it's not gross. It's not over the top. I don't know why. It's interesting that it's stuck so in people's memory or consciousness or whatever.
I mean,
I don't know why.
And like I said, your body movement, the voice, and then just even if the character wasn't like in the new one, they made her very physically deformed and scary, and they went a little harder with the prosthetics. In the original, it was just kind of looked like you were just super skinny, and everything was real tight. But just the way you made yourself more deformed without the prosthetics, like it was, you definitely took it to another level. You know what I mean? It was awesome.
Cool.
So you get the role, and then what was the process you finding out?
Well, it's interesting. I did that audition for Mary Lambert, and then a couple days later, I was like, I better read this book because I hadn't read the book. So I went to a bookstore on 57th Street and Broadway or Columbus called Coliseum Bookstore. It's no longer there. Like all the independent bookstores in New York, they're no longer there. But it was a great bookstore, and I went and I picked out Pet Sematary, Stephen King, and Mary Lambert was there in the same aisle. So I was like, hello, hi, how you doing? That was very unusual. And she was like, hi. She's like a really very cool and wonderful person. She was then. I haven't talked to her since then, but I got a really good feeling after I talked to her. And then they called the next day, and then I got it. So I was really happy. I already knew my lines. So then I just sat around and waited. I think it was like months before I did anything. You know what I mean? It takes so long to like do those things.
Now, when did they film the Zelda parts? You said they kind of had most of the film done, and then you came in towards the end?
I came in the last 2 days of filming. They were breaking everything down at that point. So,
wow.
So I don't know why that was or what happened, but I was like kind of an afterthought.
Where was the Zelda bedroom scene? Because when, if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember, and I'm having a brain fart. The whole room changed, so it wasn't the room in the house in Maine. Her mind made her think that she was back in the house of her childhood. Correct? So did you shoot on the same set as the rest, like everything else?
I did. It was in Maine. They flew me up to Maine, and they had like built a kind of a house. Rooms of a house in I guess it was, I don't know if it was an actual house or kind of like a scene, what do you call them?
Like a facade kind of thing?
Like
a studio set?
Kind of a studio, but I'm sure they didn't have a studio, but it was kind of set up like that. It was like, an interior set up in a larger space.
So it wasn't the main house, it was a second house? I know it's 30 years ago.
I can't remember. I honestly can't remember. But it was like a studio. It was like a studio of some kind.
Now, on the last couple of days of shooting, what actors were still kind of on set and kind of hanging out there?
I met Fred Gwynn briefly. He was probably on his way out. That was nice. Denise Crosby was still there, who played the mom, who was wonderful. Really helped me out. Was very, very kind to me. Brad Greenquist, who played Pascal, was still there. I was in the makeup trailer with him for a while. He was pretty great, very funny. He still is a wonderful guy. And I don't know if Miko was still there or not. He might have been around. I can't tell. Can't remember. I may have seen him. I can't remember. There was a doll of him. I might have seen the doll and thought it was
really.
Miko.
Oh yeah, the
do you know what I mean? But they were, they were definitely wrapping things up, and they were like kind of like pushing things through. They were let's get this done. So it was kind of a whirlwind for me. Like I said, I was going there from, I didn't say this, I was kind of coming from nothing going there. I was young. I hadn't had the experience before. I remember I was sick. I had like a terrible cold. I was kind of traumatized. I didn't know what was going on.
Your first big thing?
It was my first big thing. Everyone was really nice, but like I was definitely overwhelmed. So, so it's all a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
So what was it like? Because I know we've had this conversation and stuff.
Yeah,
but,
go ahead.
But for them, what was it like to have like the makeup? Like how long did it take? And
well, it was in a trailer. It was two gentlemen. I'm sorry, I don't remember their names. I know that they're probably extremely famous now, but not knowing. Do you guys know who they are?
I don't.
I don't know.
They had flown me out to California months before to take a cast of my body, my face, my hands, and my back to make all that prosthetic stuff, which is kind of like foam. It was about like, half-inch worth of foam that was built up, and then they glued it onto me. So when I got there, they basically took my shirt off. It was like, October. It was cold in Maine. So I took my shirt off and started gluing this stuff on me. And it took a day, at least. It took like at least 10 hours. And I think it actually took more. It took like 14, 15, 16 hours to get me into the I don't know what you call it, the makeup. And they were very nice. They helped me out. They tried to feed me and all that kind of stuff. But I
I just think of this.
yeah, no, they did. There are like pictures of me trying to like sip stuff. But again, like once they put it on, I couldn't eat and like that kind of stuff. So like it was kind of like an ordeal to get through.
Yeah.
And once I had done that, and it might have been like, it was like a day later, so I'd been awake for a long time. Then we started filming, and that took another. And they were like, once you're in the makeup, we're doing everything until it's done.
Yeah.
So I think I was I don't want to be,
like an exhausting
I don't
day.
want to be too melodramatic, but I was like awake for 2 days.
I mean, that's to be understand. Like,
Yeah,
that's a long time,
Yeah.
especially to have all that makeup
Yeah.
and glue
Yeah,
and stuff wearing on you,
Yeah.
and then you said you were sick on
Yeah.
top of it.
And
It's just-
maybe a little agitated, angry.
And not angry, nervous. I mean, I didn't know how I was going to do it. If I was going
Yeah.
to do okay, if I was going to be able to do it. It was like there were.
What was it like moving in it?
Well, I didn't know until, I was like pretty stationary for all that time.
Like laying,
It was
were you nervous? Like laying in the bed, like if I move the wrong way, it's gonna pop or move or just like.
No, it was really, once it was on, it was like on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going anywhere. In fact, after we were done, which was like a couple days later, I think I told you this, I was like, I needed to get it off. So I like started to rip it off my shoulder or my hand, I can't remember, but like it had been glued on, so it took some of my skin with it.
Skin
So
and baby body hair.
Yeah.
Oh.
So what they had to do then was like they had to use a solvent on every inch, and then reverse the process, which took another like
Couple hours.
few hours.
Wow.
So they had to redo everything.
So did you do, like when you were filming and stuff, was it, for you anyway, each section like a one take thing, or did they do multiple?
Oh, they did multiple
Okay.
takes. Yes. I can't remember which happened first. I think the bed scene was pretty easy.
Like the feeding part.
I think they did the feeding part, and you were talking about like the kind of like
Where you're kind of sitting on your side and turning.
Yeah, turning up. I think those were pretty easy, and I think I felt some pleasure about like figuring out stuff I wanted to do for those. I think I had some input, and Mary Lambert was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "Oh, why don't we try this?" So it was really nice. I didn't feel like I was just like a puppet or anything.
Oh, that's cool that you got to like play.
Yeah. So
instead of just okay.
Like, would you watch a take?
Yeah.
Would you watch a take and go back and be like, I can make that creepier?
I don't know if I did. I don't know if they had that. I'm sure they had that ability, but they didn't do it with me. They asked for adjustments and stuff. By the time we got to the end, which was you never get out of bed again, running toward the camera, it was like 5 or 6 in the morning the day after having done that. And by that time, I think I did many takes of that, running to this camera and screaming, and that was just kind of like horrible by that time.
Your voice is dropped.
I was like literally insane myself, so I was like going off the deep end because I was so tired and stressed and like nervous and probably had to pee and all that kind of stuff.
It's a really cool thing to think about too. Like you did a thing where you shot for a full day or 2 days.
I think so. I can't remember.
Yeah, but like. And that was just like...
It was probably a lot.
Could you imagine being like Robert Englund as Freddy? And that... You had to go through that every single day and eating and... Oh, that's...
Yeah.
No.
That's got to take a toll.
Because I think...
That's the things people take for granted when they watch like a horror movie or they watch a movie and the prosthetics are on there. Like, that... Not an easy process, and that's all. Like you said, you didn't. It was almost 2 days where you didn't get a good night's. Like you didn't sleep because it took so long to put it on, then shoot it, and then to shoot and then shoot and shoot and shoot.
Yeah.
Like, appreciate those. Zelda was only in the movie runtime maybe 3 minutes, but those 3 minutes took 2 days of no sleeping. Like
true.
That's a cool behind the scenes thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. Like I don't know. I'm sure big actors talk about what they have to do stuff too.
And then you're probably
stories about like what.
Well, I always love the photos of like Robert Englund as Freddy, or like when Tim Curry was Pennywise, and you kind of just see him in the clown thing smoking a cigarette like offset because he's just being natural, but he's still in full costume. But I know a lot of people said in the book when Gage comes back in the book, he's like covered in moss and he's like disheveled, and I think his eyes missing, and he's like Can you imagine putting a child through that cut?
No.
Honestly, that's probably why they changed it in the new one, because they're like,
we can't do that anymore.
Yeah, like, and we can't get away with just having a kid painted kind of gray with a little cut in his head. It just wouldn't hold up in today's time.
You're
so that's
right.
Probably why they switched it to like the girl being it, because she's a little older. But that makeup process is like, I didn't realize how crazy it was until you kind of brought it up. That's neat. That's a neat behind the scenes thing. I'm trying to think of something else with that. Now, you didn't get a chance to meet Stephen or anything, right? Like Stephen King?
No, he wasn't. I don't think it was around at that point.
Did you ever hear from anyone since the shooting of the movie of what he thought of how Zelda went or anything like that?
No. I think I've done some, horror conventions.
Like the cons, yeah.
Yep, and I think the other actors who were in it probably have more ideas about that. I'm not being coy. I just don't know. But, yeah.
Do you enjoy doing the horror cons and meeting because it's became like a big cult classic? Like if you go on social media now, I know when we promoted this interview, a page who literally is just dedicated to being the Pet Sematary page, and they are dedicated to the original movie, and they go to locations, old filming, and they use photos. It's definitely a following to the movie. Like it has that cult following still.
Honestly, I'm surprised more and more how many artists that are out there that are creating like mannequins or sculptures in your image for this. And like I know I send them to you, and you're probably like, oh, it's another photo. But I just think it's cool that like.
It's weird.
But like,
so when we
going
first,
to Bloom and seeing you, and then seeing somebody dedicated and made all this time.
It's really interesting.
To somebody I know, it's like, oh wow.
So when we were kicking this whole idea around for the show, and it's something I came up with a long time ago, and then I was like, I needed the courage to do it, and then I talked to Nikolai, and I was like, it sounds like a cool idea to sit down and talk to people and do that, and then we're like, well, we're kind of putting ideas out, and we talked about the Pet Sematary and horror, because we found out we have a common interest, and then we're like, oh my god, and we talked about how he knew you in the Zelda, and I was like, you can't find anything with Zelda on it, and we looked for T-shirts, we looked for anything, merchandise, toys, anything, and there was really nothing. And then we're like, hey, if we did the interview, you think it'd be cool if we asked you to do it, and this was kind of just talk between us. And then the Fright-Rags Image T-shirt came out, which is behind you, and we're like, oh my god, they made a T-shirt. Like, there's a Zelda T-shirt. Like that is awesome. And then he's like, I'm getting him one.
Yeah. As soon as it was released, I was like, I have to.
You gotta get that.
Just because I like when we worked together on No Exit, and you told me about it, I was actually wearing a Fright-Rags shirt. It was Sweet
That's
Dreams
probably
of
why I
This.
told you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, you're wearing a horror movie shirt. You like horror movies?
Yeah. And you were like, do you know about it? I'm like, know about what? He's like, Pet Sematary. I was like, no. And then you started telling me that you were Zelda and stuff. And I was like, well, if I ever find anything with you on it, I'm going to bring it back to you. And the only thing I could ever find was, I think it's...
Oh, it scared the shit out of me.
It's Lady.
Yeah,
Was
that big
on-
spike in audio right there. Heidi's home. Oh, she's getting a toy. You're good. You're not in trouble. Lay down. All right, stop it. Go lay down.
The only thing I think I could ever find was, I guess somebody made the mold of your makeup, and it was like
Or was it-
$6,000 or
Was
something.
it
Or
a,
like,
a remade one, or was it the
I
one
think-
from the same day?
not from there. I think it was one that somebody recast,
Okay.
like from that
really?
same mold,
Is that
and
so?
had the extra, like the duplicate
hands.
copy or whatever. Oh, no, it was all the pieces.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, this is all I could find. It's like $6,000 and stuff. And you're like, well, if you ever buy this, you can keep it, but I'll sign it for you. And I was
what was the mold? Was it your face, your neck, your back?
And
'cause
my hands.
Your hand. Was there any chest to it? Because they just kind of showcase your back because it was like a
Went down
hospital
around,
gown.
yeah.
It was like a hospital gown, right? Like your
Yeah.
your back was kind of exposed.
Yeah. It's like the whole...
That's crazy. And then obviously with the 30th anniversary, they release another shirt that he's actually wearing. That
well, no,
has,
this one came out at the same time as that one.
Yes.
This one has, I don't know if I've showed you this one or not.
The very happy
but
Zelda.
It has you
Yeah.
in it.
Nice.
But I figured that one was more fitting
Nice, man.
for you.
I was gonna wear that today, but I was like, I didn't want you to be staring at your own face the
That's
entire.
right.
I was like, it'd be so strange to be sitting there staring at yourself while like. So I was like, I'm just gonna put it back there. But I wanted to because we want to show their appreciation to Fright-Rags because as consumers, even before they did this and knowing you, we always enjoyed their shirts. Like they're really really cool shirts. They do a lot of really cool things, and then it just kind of worked out.
Well, that's it. It's like independent people who are doing...
Yeah, and
this incredible
it's
stuff.
kind of like how we are, like starting in your house,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how they came about.
Yeah, it's like a total labor of love. And when you go to the conventions, people will come and they'll bring stuff. They'll make their own posters. They'll make their own etchings of like moments from the movie for you to sign and stuff. They'll make their own sculpture. I have some sculpture of Zeldas that people have given me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. So there's a lot of creativity that's going into.
So you have stuff that fans made you that you have. Mm-hmm. If you ever made a
cool.
picture of that, send that over to us.
Okay.
Email that to us. That'd be cool to show off.
Honestly, I think there's one on Google. I don't know if there's one that they gave you or if it was for you
Yeah.
to sign, but it was like a little like statue mannequin. I think it was like a half version
that's it.
of you. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And then they just for the 30th anniversary, they came out with some pins.
Yes, they now. I don't know if I told you about this
Who
or
did?
not. Fright-Rags.
Fright-Rags.
So
Okay.
while we were talking about Fright-Rags, I figure I will do this now.
Yeah.
So I've been in talk with Ben, the creator of Fright-Rags, and he wanted me to tell you that when he was a kid, you scared the crap out of him. And when I was telling him about this interview, that we were, you were a friend of mine and stuff, and he was really awesome with letting us get that pumpkin carved by
Yeah.
Ian to give to you.
Yeah.
Which came out so good.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
that he actually surprised me with something. We were chatting, and he was like, "What's your address? I'm going to send you something," kind of thing. And he sent me the full collection of the Pet Sematary pins. Now, when I was at Monster Mania, they told me that there was going to be a Zelda pin coming up. But I told him that if he actually sends me a pin, because I didn't know what he was sending me, I would get you one of the Zelda pins. So, as a gift from Fright-Rags, I have it.
You
up
have
here.
the entire set with you.
I don't have the whole set with me, but this is your Fright-Rag pin.
Awesome.
We did post a picture of the pins, I believe. They came out really good. Like they
Nice.
they made Gage with the scalpel. Gage has a scalpel. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, wow.
Judd
Cool.
Judd has his mouth slit from Gage. That's the Judd pin.
So these are the pins that they came out with.
Nice.
That's actually taken right in front of you. Right in front of the Fright-Rags sticker.
Yeah, it was actually taken right there. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And even Nikolai made this really, really cool like trailer. So what he did is he showed the pins off, and then each pin he took like a snippet of the audio from the movie and put it like church growling and hissing, and then Judd going, "Where you at? I'm here." Like I love the monsters. That's my favorite. But and then like, "You'll never get out of bed," screaming. Then I play with mommy. I play with daddy. Like it was like I play with Judd. Yeah, it was he made a cool little video for that too. So.
It was cool to get to do, and it was a nice surprise. Because I mean,
so sweet.
Ben
so
didn't
nice.
have to send these to me, and they ended up coming out 2 weeks before they were released.
Yeah.
There was no marketing anywhere saying they were coming out or anything.
So we kept it like super hush.
So it was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. So I do want to say thanks to Ben.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fright-Rags. Thanks,
Fright-Rags.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you, Fright-Rags. Thank you, Ian, for making the pumpkin. And when he talked to Ian, he's like, I'll do it, but I just got to get the okay from them because it was their image on their shirt. I don't know who did the artwork for the shirt.
I'm not sure. It might have been an Osborne, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I'm sure Ian will eventually correct me and say, no, it wasn't just an Osborne.
But, if we obviously plug them, like every time we do a podcast, we like take pictures of our shirt and we'll tag where we got it so people can go. But definitely if you're a horror movie fan, and it's not even just horror movies, they do a lot of movies. They're like, you can get like, I'm a huge Warriors fan, the movie The Warriors, and they did a whole line of Warriors t-shirts. But they do a lot of horror, but they have pins, t-shirts, jackets.
They have socks.
Socks. I mean, if you're a horror movie person and you want to look for really cool merchandise, check out Fright-Rags. So you're going to get a t-shirt, whatever you order, you're going to get your item. They're usually going to send you a Warhead candy, which is kind of funny. Mm-hmm. I don't eat them because my wife ate it. And then you'll get like a baseball card from a movie, like a little like old school 80s trading cards. Mm-hmm. It's you get like cool stuff on top of your order as well. They always have cool sales, so go on their website and put your email in, and they'll send you pre-emails before anyone else gets access to it, saying, "Hey, be ready for this day. We're gonna have a cool sale."
That's actually how I knew that shirt was coming out. Mm-hmm. Because I got an email from them, and I was like, oh, this is going to be so cool. Mm-hmm. But then I didn't also know when I was going to see you, so I ended up running in after a show had ended and being like, this is your Christmas gift. I didn't know when I was going to see you, and I remember you look at it and you're like, this is me, and you're like, well, this was me then. It's like,
exactly.
How much stuff do you have over the years from meeting people and different stuff like that?
I've got a couple of things. Some posters, some artwork that people have done, like poster art,
nice,
and the sculpture. Not a lot, little.
Yeah. Now, are you open to doing cons again and going out and getting out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I think I've told you, but the play that I just did kind of coincided with
the 30th anniversary.
Two Comic-Con or two horror cons that I wasn't able to get to because of the play, unfortunately.
If someone were to watch this and they're doing cons and booking, what would be the best way to get in contact with you or do that?
Andrew, let's see, how would I do that?
Would you want them to just maybe contact us? We'll give you.
Contact Nikolai.
All right. So if you're someone who's looking, if you're a Pet Sematary fan, or if you want to book Andrew here for a con, send us a message, email or direct message us, and we'll make sure he gets it, and we'll get you set up.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome. So the movie wrapped. Was there a premiere or anything like that? Did you?
No, that was it. That was done. I can't remember. There might have been. I don't know if I was invited or not.
The new movie with the premiere, they actually had Church the Cat on the red carpet with a little tie on. Did you see
Was it a puppet or was it?
No, it was the cat, the actual cat. Yeah, that's actually this year was a really big. It was like they kind of joked around. It was like the red carpet for cats. So the cat from Pet Sematary got on the red carpet, and then there was a cat on Captain Marvel, and that cat was on the red carpet. I think they said the cat from Pet Sematary was better behaved than the cat from Captain Marvel. But did you go see it in theaters? Were you like, oh my god?
Well, actually, I did. When it came out, I was back in Bloomsburg, mm-hmm. and with the theater company that I work for now. I can't remember what play we were doing, and we went to, I can't remember which mall we went to, and it was full. It was like it was opening, and it was like, I don't know, it was a late 10 o'clock or midnight show or something, and like all of the cast of the show that we were in and the members of the company had come, and some friends from town, and Jerry Stropnicki, who was a member of the theater and a dear friend and very authoritative, like went up to the desk because we weren't going to get in. He said, "We have a member of the cast of the show here." So they got us in.
So people watched it opening night
Yeah.
with someone who was physically in it and had no idea.
Yeah.
That's
basically.
awesome.
So we were cheering and we were like making a lot of noise, and it was wonderful. And it was also it was also kind of psycho to see like an image of yourself, to be sitting in two places in the same room,
Yeah.
looking at yourself, 8 feet in diameter, your face. It's odd. It's odd.
Now you said you're not a big horror movie fan, right?
No, I don't watch horror movies.
Are they too scary or?
Yeah. It's one of those things where, like, if I have like a really horrible image, I can't get out of my head. It's just, even if it's fake, and I know it's fake, it's just too real for me.
So going back to that movie, besides yourself, what is something on that movie that you're like, that still to this day kind of gets you?
The cutting of the heel,
Oh, yeah, but I feel like that's
that.
Judd gets butchered.
the biting. It's like, it's just bad. It's just bad. So I don't watch a lot of blood and gore. I'll watch the old horror movies,
Yeah.
which I still like, and like even the Hammer films. I don't know if you remember them. They're more like campy, cheesy.
Yeah, they're actually talking about remaking Nosferatu.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're talking about rebooting that, and
That'd be cool.
and Salem's Lot, which kind of Nosferatu is in as well, right? And then Nosferatu had like a weird little cameo in Stephen King's Salem Lot.
I think so.
Yeah,
And like this, was it the 76 one? Was
yeah,
that the old, that one?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. That was that the first Stephen King?
One of
The
the
first Stephen King films, right?
I'm not sure.
That
If I'm
was.
not mistaken, I believe Pet Sematary book and movie were very close to each other. If I'm not mistaken, like where the book was released and the movie came out, it wasn't too far from each other.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I think so. I could be wrong.
Huh.
Yeah. When you go to cons, what are some of the questions you always get from people at the table? Like, with
Well, first I get shocked because a lot of people still think that Zelda was played by a girl.
so they look at the image and look at you
Yeah, they
like,
look at them and they get the shocked face on. That's very fun. What did they ask me? I can't remember. They usually tell me, it's very fun because they usually say, "Oh, you traumatized me. You traumatized me. I mean, you were so scary. You traumatized me. I was a little kid." It's always when they were little. It's always when they were little.
Yeah.
And like then they become addicted to it somehow, and then they want to show their little kid.
Yeah.
So I've met a lot of little kids who have seen me, who traumatized their parents and are now traumatized. So I never know how to feel about that.
Yeah, like I said, like Zelda is up there as like a classic. Like you think of like the Exorcist is way up there. Tim Curry is Pennywise. It's just funny that a lot of them are Stephen King books, but like Pennywise, traumatized kids. When we were growing up, Leprechaun, because it was like the thing, and then you're like, I can't wait till I can just show someone the scariest thing I remember when I was a kid, and that's the kind of beauty of horror. You just like pass it on.
So I'm sure that you probably get this a lot. Do you get people to ask you to do the voice when you go to these conventions and stuff?
Sometimes I do.
Did they ask you to record the voice as well as being shot on film? Because a lot of the stuff, like a lot of the voice wasn't on the physical film. It was you, like Rachel, like doing the Rachel.
Yeah.
So there was actual audio work as well in there.
There was actually. I can't remember how long after. It must have been a couple months. It was at the Brill Building in New York, and I went in a sound studio and did a tape over of, I think, just about everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that took a while too. We did that a number of times. It wasn't just a one straight shot. And I didn't expect that to happen. I thought they had taped it.
Yeah.
But I pretty much knew it wasn't that hard.
Where did you get the idea for the voice? Just kind of came out of you?
Just did it.
Yeah.
Just did it.
So when you recorded, like you went to that studio to record it, did they like show you the scenes
Yes.
as it was? Okay, so
Absolutely. So you're watching it on the screen and I'm taping over while you're watching.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So she's not actually hearing the Rachel when she's walking up the stairs when she was like filming.
I doubt it.
That's
yeah,
interesting
probably
too.
not, Yeah.
Yeah, no, not at all, probably.
Yeah.
No.
Because I mean, the way she played it off in the movie is like she's hearing it and she's like, "Oh my god, there it is!" But in reality, she had no idea.
But I mean,
That's interesting.
that's how, like, why I also feel like as an actor I should learn parts of editing, because a lot of that stuff makes a difference in the film, where you have to know those things of how it will come into play later.
Or you're gonna put it together, right?
So it's always fun to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do more theater stuff, I feel, than film stuff, so I don't really get to use that muscle as much. But
Do a lot of
it's
film stuff.
still there. I mean, but like, I guess what I'm saying is significant roles, like when I did No Exit with you guys, or like when I went on tour, it was more stuff like that the roles are higher up than what I would be cast in a film, because like they look at my size and it's like, oh well, you're the right size but your age is off or something, like nothing matches up where it should. But where, like you were saying earlier with the theater stuff, I get to play roles that I wouldn't ever get to play anywhere else.
Possibly.
Well, the beautiful thing about not just film, 'cause I know they did a lot with film too, is making people seem like Jean-Claude Van Damme was mostly standing on soapboxes for most of his combat movies, but like,
is that true?
Yeah, like even when you're on, I'm not saying you're short, but you're like, even when you were in the movie, the play, when you were in the play, like I feel if you're as talented as you are, that doesn't even come into play anymore. It's like a mind trick almost. It's like when you come on stage and you're the dad, so immediately your mind just thinks, okay, that's a dad. It doesn't really, height, weight, size doesn't really matter anymore, because you've already captured their imagination of who you are as that character. So I think a lot of it comes down to your talent.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice too, because I've seen you over the years in different genres of roles. And it's nice to know that, like, because I mean, some actors are obviously better than others in, like, I'm better at the drama side of things versus comedy. But anything I've ever seen you in, like, I remember you being in art, and you had that panic attack where you're jumping up and down on the couch and freaking out and stuff. Seeing the comedy versus the drama side of you, I always have the same level of enjoyment.
Is that so?
Yeah, like when I saw like, I sat in rehearsal for you for The Foreigner, and it, like, Elizabeth made a note about how, like, it was great to have, like, that interaction with, like, stuff that I laughed at and stuff, but it was you guys as a whole that made me laugh, and it was great to get to sit in for those rehearsals and get to see you guys work through all of that kind of stuff, because, I mean, for an audience member, they get to see it once, maybe, but they get to see how it is, where I got to see you guys play with those roles and fiddle together, like even that breakfast scene where he's teaching you how to use the fork and stuff. It's just, stuff like that is just really cool to get to be in the room for versus in the audience.
I'm bummed I missed The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
I love The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah?
It's one of my favorites, yeah. Because it's a little bit of everything. It's like a family, but then it kind of has the creepy side. Or
Definitely.
It's like,
very creepy.
Yeah, so it has a very dark... I remember as a kid, like, you watch it, you're like... I had a friend who was terrified of everything, my friend Justin. I remember, like, if we watched anything scary, he was like, I'm going home. Like, I can't sleep here tonight. Like, you scared me. Like, anything. So I remember, like, growing up, he'd be like, I'll watch Wizard of Oz, but I'm not watching The Flying Monkeys or The Witch. Like, that was enough for him to freak him out.
The monkeys.
Yeah. But yeah, I when you guys did it, I was like, oh, man, and then after I seen... I'm going to butcher the title. I'm just going to say the dog.
The curious dog. Yeah.
The curious dog. I don't know, whatever.
It's okay.
The dead dog. The dead dog play. I was like, man, I should have seen Wizard of Oz too. Like, I was like, I messed up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, I'm bummed, because I after seeing that, I was like, I want to go back. Like, so I know we keep saying BTE, but the Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble.
Well, to be fair, though, if you search, like, their website is bt.org.
BTE.org.
So it is fine.
Yeah, we will everything will be in the descriptions below as well. But an awesome venue. It's really, really nice. Ticket prices are great, or you can go earlier and do the pay what you would expect thing.
Or pay what you wish.
Pay what you wish. They do a lot of different things. The curious...
Incident of the Dog of the Night Time.
Yes, thank you. That play alone, I mean, it covers. It's not only just a great play, but it's super educational. That one had special effects that I never thought I would see in a theater in Bloomsburg.
Yeah.
The lighting, the sounds, like when he's going through his overstim and he's going and his like, I don't want to say it the wrong way and come off like offensive or anything. I just don't know the words I'm trying to say. But when he's going through his overstim, you know, you would, if you're someone outside the box or never experienced autism or ever seen that, like, you know, I have a different experience where I have someone who has a small child who has autism, and she gets really embarrassed in public because when her son goes through that, they think, oh, you're just being a bad mom. Your kid's throwing a temper tantrum and you just can't control your child. There's something more to that. And then like, so, and that play kind of like, I remember when I asked the question, I got like a little emotional. Like I got, cause like it brought a side of it like you don't understand. Like it was super informative. Like, so when in the play, like the lights are going, the flashing, you hear like a squeal, like a wee, like a weird frequency, but like you have to kind of listen for it. But once your ear hits it, it's stuck in your head, and then it just kind of amplifies, and it's like, so he's like your audience is going through it as much as the character is on stage. Yeah. And it was just like it was an insane experience. And then when he would talk about being on a car ride or a bus ride, and he goes, you see, you know, a tree, and you see a building, and he goes, I seen 52 cars and 3 cows and 2 squirrels, and that tree was apples, and that, like, I see everything that the world doesn't see. Yeah. It was a very powerful experience. Yeah. And you guys did a phenomenal job. And even with a short staffed cast, certain people had to play multiple roles. Mm-hmm. And never at one part where I was like, is that the name? Like, I'm not sure the actress's name, but she played the neighbor as well as the teacher, one of the teachers, or the person who was. And never at one point was I like, is she the neighbor now or is the teacher? Like, she just controlled the stage. Yeah. And it was awesome. It was a really, really cool experience. And I would highly recommend that to everyone, just to go, even if I didn't know what I was walking into. He was just like, we're going to go see a play. And I was like, okay, I can do kind of some homework and have something for the interview. And I walked in and I was like, it took me by like surprise. It was an amazing experience, and I would definitely recommend it to everybody.
Thank you.
100%. And I'm not even a theater person, but it changed me. Like I would definitely go see more. Yeah, it was a great. You guys are doing awesome work there.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. We're proud of that show. Mm-hmm. That was like a great undertaking.
And I got quoted too.
Oh boy!
So there's the eye roll.
You got quoted.
I put a review and I tagged the page and I said, 100%, like kind of what I said here, and they took from our
one of the Facebook posts.
They took from like the podcast and they put it on the page, and I shared it and sent to Nikolai, and I'm like, I got quoted.
Yeah, it's like, so how long have you known BT? And he was like,
I was like, have you ever been quoted?
I went to one show and I was quoted, and you've known how? I'm like, yeah. We always throw dirt at each other a little bit.
Yeah. If I mess up one thing in like a group chat, he's like, you told me Tuesday at 3. Like, that's our dynamics. But it's unbelievable. Now, is there anything that you would like to like, obviously without telling them what to do, but is there a project that you wish that you can do again, or a certain type of role or play that you would like to dive into?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm at a place right now, I think, where I've been doing it long enough where I'm pretty satisfied with what I've done. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be directing next year. Mm-hmm. So we direct and we also administer portions of the theater. So kind of a full kind of job.
Can you talk about what you're directing yet, or is it still?
Sure. I will be directing, hopefully, God willing, Miss Bennet, Christmas at Pemberley, which is a kind of a Jane Austen Christmas play from the characters of Pride and Prejudice. If you know Pride and Prejudice, mm-hmm. It's the characters of Pride and Prejudice at the following Christmas after the book ends. So it's a kind of comedy, a romantic comedy. And then I'm going to be directing also our theater tour.
Okay.
Which will be about ancient Greek myths.
Ooh, I'm in.
So, I'll let you finish, but we'll talk about Greece then.
Okay. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I'll be doing next year. And thinking about... I'm not thinking too much lately about what I want to do on stage. Whatever we choose is always we choose our own season. The actors in our company choose what we're going to do, which is kind of unusual. So it usually comes out of our own passions and tastes and what kind of the place we're looking at the time. So we'll see what emerges. And
I honestly hope they make that. I hope that now the play you guys did, it was a book, not so much a play, correct?
it was a book originally, and then it was adapted as a play in London.
Okay.
And so what we did was the adaptation of the book.
That if especially with just the awareness it brings, I really hope. I'm not saying to take away from the theater aspect of it. I'm just being as a mainstream thinking that most people just see they don't read the book, they don't watch the play, they'll wait for the movie. I hope that gets turned into a movie because I just think it's such a good story.
Yeah,
it's a phenomenal story. Yeah. But yeah, so you're and then when you're talking about your directing, they actually, going back to the horror, they made a Pride, Prejudice, and Zombie.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can stick that in there.
Like a little Easter egg.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Greece, you like to travel.
Mm-hmm.
You visited Greece.
Yes, I did.
That's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what was that like?
What was it, 2017?
I think so, yeah.
It was like, I'd been to Greece in like 2002 with my wife Sandy, and I was like, I want to go back here. So I went back for around 6 weeks in 2017, the summer, and I walked around. I had a small backpack, and I went in the summertime, which means you don't need a lot of clothes. And I just walked.
I would just put a toga on, just walk around, toga and sandals.
That is something that I would do. So I love Greece. I love Greek history. I love the Greek people, and I just wanted to be around them. I know they're having a hard time right now, and but there's a beauty there and a spirit, and the land is just beautiful. So I walked. And I loved walking.
How much of it is still original from like the white marble homes, and is a lot of that still there? Or?
You mean like the ancient?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a lot of it's there. I mean, you go to I went to an island called Lesbos, and you walk around, and it's all there. It's all there at the side of the road, or it's there like in the middle of a park. The ancient world is still very much alive there, and I feel like. I'll just say it. The gods are there too. They're there. They're present. They're around. They may inhabit people, but they're definitely there. And any Greek will tell you that. There's stranger things there that are
like a little supernatural.
Yeah. At least for me, I experience it that way.
So I'm obsessed with this video game series called Assassin's Creed, and Assassin's Creed always picks a location and a period of time, and then they incorporate their lore, which is kind of like the Assassins versus the Templars. So it's always like okay. So it kind of dives into a little bit of religion, as well as like the Crusades, kind of like the Christians kind of taking over, and then there's these pieces of Eden, which are like ancient alien artifacts, but can be used good or evil, where they can be used to manipulate or control. And the newest version of the game is called Odyssey, and it takes place during like your character is a descendant of Leonidas.
I think it's the grandson.
And it's like it's like the grandson of Leonidas, and you're not so much the Assassin's Creed hasn't been developed yet, but it's starting to. So like the cults, there's like a cult of Cosmos, and then like this new like resistance is starting to come up to battle this thing. And you can literally go to island to island. You can do like ancient Greece. You can go to the battlefields, and it's And I told him about it, and he never plays those types of games. And I just talked about it for like 4 weeks straight. Like, what are you playing? I'm playing this game again. Like, it's so cool, and there's so many cool Easter eggs to Greece. And he's like, "What's this called?" And then he was hooked.
I did. I bought it.
He's hooked. He's hooked.
Is it good?
But I've also never been to Greece, and that was always something that I want to do. I mean, because I know we've talked in the past. Like, my family has. There's a place which I found out some more information about.
What is it? So I can go.
I don't know the address yet, but there's a trip being planned by some of the family members to go and see it, because it's a possibility of being sold or not.
What is it? Is it?
It's a bar,
a taverna,
and it also has like apartment stuff attached to it.
So we can get drunk and pass out somewhere.
Go sleep.
So
I'm in.
I would love to go and see it. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get to see it before it sells, but I would just love to see Greece in general. But out of all the places that you've traveled, is there a place that you haven't gone that you'd like to go?
Oh, there's so many places that I
Yeah.
still want to go. I want to go to northern Greece too, in the mountains, and I'd like to go to a city called Thessaloniki, which is in northern Greece also. I'd go anywhere, honestly. Traveling is just so much fun.
What is your nationality, your background, your heritage?
My dad was Hungarian and Irish, and my mom was German-Irish.
Yeah.
So I don't have a drop of Greek blood in me.
Yeah.
But
It's funny because I grew up like, I'm Italian, Irish, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Dutch, English because the Blackwell name comes from England. But I and then McHale, my grandfather. And then we did I had a few family members do that DNA thing, and they're like, "Oh, you're barely Irish." And I was like, this whole time, I was like, that may apply for you, but I think on my dad's side there's more Irish, so I think I have a little more. But Ireland is always somewhere.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
No,
Well, actually,
I only left the country once. I've never been to New York City, but I've been to Dominican
go.
Republic.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. That's the furthest I've ever traveled, is Dominican Republic. We went on that, but I think I went to North Carolina, Florida to Disney World.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so traveling wise, I've only been North Carolina, Florida, and that's about it. I don't really go many places.
I'm trying to warm them up and get them to Broadway and see a show. Whether
Yeah.
it may just be a play, but
Yeah.
I'll go see Beetlejuice the musical.
well, that's good because I'm.
Is it there? Is it there?
Well, they
just
just
started.
finished their previews.
Oh, they did.
So I went to go see their preview.
You did?
Yeah, which
How
was my
was it?
first preview. I loved it. The guy who in the Times News, I think it was, who reviewed it, did not so much. But he hated everything I loved about it.
Like every time we talk movies with each other.
Yeah, kind of.
I hated this.
It's
I'm
like you
They
guys-
made Beetlejuice more adult with things. He talked about at one point, doing cocaine and stuff like that, where,
I feel like that's what
As-
Beetlejuice would talk about.
right,
Beetlejuice grabs his crotch and says, "Nice effing model,"
right.
and then goes to a hooker house.
But then this reviewer says, "Oh, shouldn't take the kids to this," because he drops the
I
F-bomb
see.
and all this kind of stuff. So
see.
he rated it low because it wasn't as I guess family friendly
I see.
from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
things.
That's the way you do Beetlejuice, though.
Right.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that he didn't like that was in the movie that they altered and I really enjoyed. They start off with Lydia's funeral, or her mom's funeral, which you don't see in the movie or any of that kind of stuff. But anyway, not to get too far off topic with any of
Yeah.
this, but my hope is to get, because I know he's not been to New York, and I go,
I'm gonna go see Billy
Kinda
Joel too.
awesome.
So if we could do a
Go to
twofer.
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I love
That'd
Billy
be cool.
Joel.
I had
I've
some
never
friends
been
who-
there.
I think he has a play. Doesn't he have some type of play or something he's going with that's based off his music?
Does he?
I think so. 'Cause I think
the
someone
movie Rocket Man?
No, that's Ellen John.
Oh, never mind.
I've had friends go see him at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, supposedly he has a play or something going on that's on Broadway or something that's based on his music, and somebody I work with went to go see it, and they got super lucky because the night that they went, he went on stage and played. So
That's cool.
So it was his production,
Wow.
but he was actually doing the
Wow,
music.
wow.
Yeah, I love that. So I'd probably be like that kid in New York, look at all this cool stuff, and then getting
You gotta
pickpocketed
go.
or something.
It is overwhelming, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I'm not a big city guy. I am. When I go to a city, I'm like, this is really cool, but I would never want to live here.
Yeah. I got like a 2 or 3 day limit.
And then you get sick of it.
It's
Honestly,
too
though,
much. Too much.
I've been thinking, because I know we've talked in the past about where the next step is and all that kind of stuff, and the more I have been going to shows and stuff lately, I'm like, I could never go to California. Not because it may be the place or not for me. I'm too far away from Broadway. I can't imagine.
I love going there so much.
Yeah, I can't. I couldn't imagine my life without the possibility of
Being able to be there.
going to see a Broadway show within 3 hours.
Doesn't
That's
LA
so
have
great.
has
They
a
might
theater scene?
and it's probably not.
But it's not Broadway.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, they have shows and stuff come through.
They have theater there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it's the same.
right.
I don't know.
But maybe it's also because that's what I've grown up with.
Maybe LA's
New York
more the
side.
movie scene, where
Right.
New York is more the theater scene. Maybe that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, but then that also gives you that aspect of stepping into those actors' shoes. Better to go to New York than on a film because
So I love music, so
you
the
don't get
LA
to
scene would
see-
be amazing for me because I feel like LA and Nashville, I thought Nashville was all country music, but from what I heard down there, it's like every genre of music. Like it's a melting pot of music. Like you walk in any location and there's someone playing some type of instrument and singing or performing in LA or Nashville. So that would be like right up my alley.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go to Boston too. So when you said you lived in like the Boston area, that's like a city I always wanted to go to. Like I always dug that.
I'd like to go back there too. I mean, I only went there a couple of times because we didn't live in Boston.
We want to do a road trip. We want to do Boston, and on the way home, we want to stop at Salem, and then stop at the Lizzie Borden house.
Of course.
Yeah, because I'm a weirdo.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
So I guess this is somewhat travel related. So for a while you were with Box of Light, who I work with now.
Yes.
And you went on tours.
I did.
What was that like?
It was a real education.
Yeah.
At that point, their company was called Learning Tomorrow.
Okay.
And I don't think it was Box of Light yet, but they did solo shows that toured schools in Pennsylvania, elementary, middle schools, some high schools. And they were like 45-minute shows from everything from mythology to science, chemistry shows, shows about holidays, first Thanksgiving, Aesop's Fables. I mean, we learned a lot of different shows and did them by yourself. So it taught me a lot about being able to depend upon yourself as a solo performer, which is a big thing. I don't know if I'd be the same now, because I'm a lot older now. But it gave you a certain kind of ability, authority, chops to be able to do that kind of thing. And it wasn't easy.
Yeah,
it was challenging, but it certainly was rewarding too.
Yeah, I mean, even from the touring that I did with you guys during the internship, you learn a lot about like how far you can even push yourself. Because I mean, it may not have been because did you do a show on top of that tour, like when you were with Box of Light?
I can't remember. I don't think
Okay.
I did. I think I worked for just Box of Light.
Because I remember going on tour days and being gone all day. Like, I think one of the shows we went to Maryland and we were gone all day and then came back and did rehearsal for No Exit at night. And it was just this constant, like, back to back. Like, there was no time to be tired.
Yeah.
And, like, I would find myself at night walking around Bloomsburg. That's how I kind of got into that habit of walking around and rehearsing lines just to get some fresh air and kind of just
move
go with
around.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it really tests what you can do as an actor and what you're comfortable with. But would you ever go on tour again if you were offered to go do it?
Like doing solo shows?
Not necessarily solo stuff. Like if
I
it was
would.
like TIC or
Yeah, I would.
that stuff.
I think I would. Yeah, I like going around,
Yeah,
seeing different things, different people. Yeah, I would.
that's one thing that I really liked. I mean, I didn't get to experience it, but just from hearing from the past with the TIC stuff, having the ensemble members like a part of the show and coming with you and stuff, I just think that's really cool that you guys even go do that with the interns.
Yeah. It's
So,
fun.
did you do your auditions yet? Not for, like, you said a little bit ago that you were going to, I think, Philly to go do auditions.
We have done we've done some auditions, and we're going to be going back in May for callbacks for auditions for interns and guest actors.
So what's a process like that like, for those that don't know?
Well, we go into Philly. We go to the greater Philadelphia area auditions in April, and we take a look at the people there, both the recent graduates and the non-union actors, because we're a non-union theater company. And then we call them back and ask for tape submissions for the plays that we're going to be doing next year. And then they do that. And then off of them, we decide who we want to call back. And then we'll have callbacks for people in early May to see if we want to have any of them be guest actors. So it's a little bit of a complicated. I'm actually the casting coordinator for that right now, so I'm spending a lot of my days emailing people and like setting that up and sending them sides from the plays that we're doing. And it's very pleasurable, honestly, because you get to see, the older you get, you start to like look at younger people and like, God, they're all so talented. It's like you see so much talent and so much vitality and so much beauty out there. What people can do, you just want to be able to give everybody a job, because actors are great. I love actors. That's why I'm an actor, because they're cool people.
So I know, like, while we're talking about the audition and stuff, I know you guys in the past have taken people like Peyton from from being in the Nether, and she was a good distance away. Like,
she was.
Do you look close first, and if you don't find someone, kind of branch out farther with that?
We look close first. We look closer in New York and Philadelphia. I think in the case of Peyton, that actor, I think she was a submission because she knew that we were doing that play, and she specifically wanted to do that play. I can't remember where she was from. She was Illinois or something.
I think so, yeah.
So she had found, she actually investigated us.
Okay.
And was very forward about wanting to work with us. So we actually didn't find her. I think she found us.
Okay.
So we don't cast a wide net. And there's always kind of actors know other actors who know other actors. So there's always that kind of thing too. But we don't put out any casting calls in California.
Right.
Something like that. So,
So I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past. How do you feel about directing stuff versus acting?
Well, acting is something I feel like for me comes more naturally to me than directing does. Directing is much more logistical. You have to be more organized than I am, and you have to be able to. And I think it's a special talent in that you have to, even though I am an actor. You'd think that I'd be able to talk to other actors about what they're doing, but that's not necessarily the case. Acting is a very intuitive kind of thing, and I feel like, communication for me sometimes can break down in terms of trying to convey something. I'm not sure that I understand what directing is. I do it, and sometimes actors seem like they're okay with it, but I feel like it's not something that I was trained in. It's still something that I'm still trying to figure out. I don't know if I ever will figure it out entirely. I enjoy it, and sometimes I don't enjoy it. But I've done pretty well, I think. I haven't had anyone kill me yet. So it's just a different animal entirely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, from the experience I had having you as a director for No Exit, I don't remember a day that I felt uncomfortable with anything. Even when we were getting down closer to the end of things and there were a couple lines that I was struggling with and stuff, you came to me, and instead of being annoyed about things, it was you sat me down, you're like, what can we do to make this better? And you were willing to work with me no matter what it took. I remember we even just going out and getting a coffee at Fog and Flame or something, just to kind of get into that mindset and stuff. Yeah. It was a very warm experience of getting to work with you.
Yeah.
And I'll probably never forget that, because I've worked with a lot of directors and stuff that they're not necessarily not willing to help you, but at least with me anyway, you seem to have known when I needed help without me having to say something. And it was nice that you were willing to put that hand out, and because it was almost like you're not an actor or a director standing in front of me trying to impress me, and there was this gap between us. It was an actor looking at another actor and working to get that same goal.
Yeah,
and it was nice to have that.
Cool. That's great. Thank you for telling me that.
No problem.
I think basically I'm an actor. I'm an actor who directs, so I think that's probably why. Do you know what I mean?
Would you consider yourself, then maybe this is more of a sports term, but would you consider yourself not so much as a director, but almost as a coach or a guide, more of a guider, a guidance person?
I think so.
Where you maybe seen someone like Nikolai and you're I see some of myself in Nikolai at his point, and kind of guiding him to steps instead of more of being because you hear the term director, you're thinking it has more of like a powerful, like, I'm going to tell you what, like, but you're more of a softer, like, hey, I'll teach you through personal experience or what have I been through.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. I think we've got like a common like idea like directors tell actors what to do. They don't. Doing theater is such a collaborative kind of process. You can't tell an actor to do something. I mean, you can, but good luck. Do you know what I mean? You got to like let the actor do what they know how to do and try to pull stuff out of them. Help them in their process. Yeah. It's not your process, it's their process. So that's typical. It's an interesting thing to try to figure out how to do, because we all have different vocabularies,
And honestly, I did super appreciate that. Like, speaking of vocabulary and stuff, my vocabulary, I'm going to be honest, isn't the greatest of things, but I've also seen directors who will use these giant words to describe how to act in this scene, and I'll be like, what are you talking about? Like, it seems like
I'm from School County. I know most of my vocabulary is curse words.
Yeah, but it just seems like
just fucking do it.
Yeah,
do what I tell you to do.
It seems like there are some directors out there that they'll throw those big fancy words out to kind of be impressive, but then you'll have like people like me that are just like, what do you want? Like, there's no need for that giant word.
It comes down to authority, too. With some people, it's like a test of character. If you give someone an ounce of power, how they handle it is a big showing of how they're of their personality. So if someone gets a little bit of authority and they get that top spot of director and they get that ability where they can possibly break someone down or kind of have that authority over them, it's a big judge of character. And if you have someone who's like, you're gonna do what I say, this is how I would do it, or you have someone who's like a coach, like growing up being a soccer coach and teaching children, you can scream at a kid all day long because they mess something up, but they're not going to learn that way. You're like, hey, this is just from personal experience, I did this before, I would do this and this, but maybe that's not your style, and I got to learn instead of being more of a dictator, you're more of a democracy, and you're learning from each other.
And I feel like you did that super well, especially because, like, I'm also going to be super honest about this, too. I'm not the world's greatest reader when it comes to things. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you remember the conversation that we had about it or not. Like, we were reading through scripts, me and the other interns and you, and we were trying to figure out what play we were going to do before we ended on No Exit. And we were reading through them, and every now and again there'd be a word that I wouldn't know. But it wasn't that I didn't know the word, it was just I had never seen it written.
Yep.
And it, like, I told you that, like, when I look at a script, if there is a word that I don't know written, I memorize that's where that word is.
I forgot that.
And I completely skip over looking at it, because the minute I see it, it, like, cripples me, because I'm like, oh, I'm going to screw this up.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't judge that at all. You were very like, that's a really interesting way to think about it, and we worked with that.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that scares me as an actor with things, is having to be given something and not knowing what it possibly will be ahead of time, and not have that prep of, I need to memorize that one word, and if I go up there and I could nail the rest of the audition, but I hit that one word and it just shatters me.
Yeah.
But
that's tough. That's tough if you have cold readings, and you're handed a piece of script and say, read this, which we do actually in auditions. So I understand how that is, and I understand, like, not everyone has that facility. Mm-hmm. They don't, and so to like pick something up and like just do it.
But honestly, though, like, not even just you, like, even when I did the auditions and stuff for the other parts throughout the season, and for the Anne Frank, when I auditioned for Danny, it was like that with all of you, that I wasn't afraid to hit that bad word that I didn't know, because you were all just be like, yes, you can do this kind of thing, and super helpful with everything.
Yeah.
And it was like that family thing that we talked about. Like, you never wanted to see me fail kind of thing. You're all in my corner, and it was great. And I don't think people really get to experience that, at least in my mind, don't get to experience that as often. And like we talked about that, they take for granted that BTE is around, and like a lot of the students from Bloom, they graduate and they don't think about being an intern per se, but I highly recommend it. Like, I mean, yeah, I had my troubles with some of the interns and stuff throughout it, but I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
And it was an experience that I went into. I mean, I got to see you guys perform as a student, and then got to be one of you guys, even if it was for that short moment. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get on the last wrap up here, unless we have anything else you want to cover. What would be someone who's getting into? Cause I think Nikolai did a really good cover of this, and I think a good build up on this would be what was some advice, like if someone was getting into acting or theater or wanting to get into that scene, and they're from the local area, and now they are aware of BTE and that's a thing, what would be some steps or some things that you would recommend if they wanted to get into that process?
Awesome. Well, if you're around here, I mean, come and first of all, come to a show here.
Absolutely.
Come to a show at BTE. Come visit us and introduce yourself. Come and audition for our shows. We're doing a summer show this year about Grimm's fairy tales.
I'm so excited for that.
3 of us have written. We're having auditions on tomorrow from 4 to 7 o'clock at the Columbia Mall at the theater space there. If you want to come and try out for our summer show, it's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. You can get experience doing theater on a main stage show for like a couple weeks. It's amazing.
It really is.
Yeah. So we are here not only to entertain our community and have a dialogue with our community, we're also here to show people, and especially young people, what theater is about and how to do it. And we've seen generations, and I'm not just talking interns, I'm talking about young kids come up and become theater professionals and understand the uses and the meaning of what theater is supposed to do.
What if you're someone who's 30, 40 years old and you're like, I want to try it?
We have in this summer we will have I think 3 people who are not under 18 in our show. Nice. Who are from the community. So we do use actors who are adult actors from the community as well.
Fantastic.
So.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is you just gotta now you're aware of it. That's the biggest. One of the things we try to do is like if there's something out in the community, we'll try to find it and then have people hear about it and go do it. And that's something that I from being down here, I don't really know much about what's going on in Bloomsburg, and now I know there's a theater program there. And if there's someone if you're that person listening now, and then you want to get into that or go see more productions, it's there. Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble. And like I said, all the descriptions will be in the links below. I'm super excited for Grimm Fairy Tale.
Thanks.
Because that's the little bit of a horror / your childhood.
It is. It may not be as horrible as you want it to.
Yeah. I mean, if you really boil down the old fairy tales,
they're awful.
There are some really crazy.
Grimm fairy tales are bad.
Yeah, and all the Grimm Fairy Tale does is just kind of it kind of just talks about what it brushes over. Like when you listen to Little Red Riding Hood, they're like, oh, by the way, it eats your grandma. But this was like, oh, it eats her grandmother. Like, it kind of like puts it there.
Very upfront about it.
Yeah. Yes. Where like the kids are like, Jack and Jill went up a hill and then fell down. And you're like, oh, he fell down a mountain. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. No. They didn't pull any punches. The horror of life was very present.
They actually have really cool Grimm Fairy Tale comic books.
Do they?
Yeah, they're awesome.
Really?
Yeah, they're super illustrated and they really dive into those stories.
Yeah.
But anything you want to say in closing?
No, I just, other than it's been wonderful to know you in the time that I've had. I mean, I wouldn't change anything having you like as a mentor and just coming to you and like having coffee and stuff like we do randomly. And it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah,
Um,
it's great. It's been great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Tony.
doing this, and obviously it's perfect timing with the Pet Sematary movie,
Yeah.
and hopefully we can get not only get people to the Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble if people want to contact you for if they want to do horror cons or anything
Yeah,
like that,
sure.
they can always we'll definitely get that information out and get you back out there in that scene. And but thank you so much, seriously, and you're
Absolutely.
super talented at what you do, and
Thanks.
I look forward to seeing more shows at the BT.
Forward to seeing you too.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, that'll do it for Interviews with Everyday People. You're going to be seeing this. It's a Friday. We have a lot more cool shows coming up. If you want to just listen to the audio of this, everything's in the description below. And thank you once again, Andy, for the show. And never get out of bed again, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, I know there's going to be one or two people that say, "How come you didn't have him do the voice? It was 30 years ago. Is it still there? Or do you have it stored away?"
It's always there.
There it is.
It'll never go away.
Thank you so much. I know. As I was closing, I'm like, there's gonna be somebody in the comment like,
going.
why did you ask him? Like, yeah. But there it is, everyone. Thank you guys so much. Go see the original movie. Pick up the book. And go see the remake, and it just support movies, and obviously go see the Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble. They do amazing work there. And you can, if you're a big horror fan, you can see Andy outside of the prosthetics. Have a great night. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
So,
Thank you so much.
how long do you think it was?
Huh?
How long do you think
It was a couple hours.